G'day YouTubers, I will preview round 3 of the 2024 AFL season. Before I start, it will be appreciated if you can subscribe to my channel. Please help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Returning back to the show, before I start, I will review my round 2 boards. For the first game, I tipped Collingwood to beat St Kilda. Damn it, wrong. I selected Adelaide to beat Geelong. Again, wrong. The third game, I tipped Freo to beat North Melbourne. Yeah, I got one right. The next game, I tipped Melbourne to beat Hawthorn. Easily, Melbourne won comfortably. The next game, I tipped Sydney to beat Essendon. You beauty. The Dons lost by 30 points. The next game, I tipped the Bulldogs to beat Gold Coast. Yeah, that was correct. The next game, I tipped the Power to beat Richmond. Got that right. And the last game, I tipped GWS to beat West Coast. The Giants started pretty easily. So overall, I selected 6 out of 8 correct. So far for season 2024, I have selected 15 correct so far. The first game of the week is between Brisbane and Collingwood at the Gabba on Thursday, the 28th of March. There are some players in the mix for this week. For Brisbane, Lachlan Neale will be considered as he missed the round 1 clash to Fremantle. Also considered in the mix is Tom Doedee, potentially his first game for the club. For the Magpies, the players in the mix are Noble, Dean and Ash Johnson. The players injured for the Lions are McKenna and the ACL injuries to both Coleman and Ashcroft. The players injured for Collingwood is Daniel McStay, who is on the long-term injury list, and also Kruger, while Murphy is still suffering concussion since the grand final. Collingwood lost last week to St Kilda by 15 points to start the season at 0 wins and 3 losses, and the Lions had the bye last week, but are also winners with 2 losses. Where the game will be won, I selected Brisbane's midfield as the key. The players of McInerney, McCluggage, Neale, Dunkley and Berry against Collingwood's midfielders of Cameron, Nick Dacos, Mitchell, De Goey and Pendlebury. Both teams have first-class midfielders, and even if Brisbane evens out in the midfield, I expect them to win as their forward line is more potent than Collingwood's, given that they had 3 players in the top 40 in the 2023 season for goal kicking. So overall, I tipped Brisbane to win, and I just expect them to win on a Thursday night at home. Both teams are struggling, but yeah, I selected Brisbane because they're playing at home and they haven't lost 2 consecutive games at home for a while. The next game is between North Melbourne and Carlton on Good Friday on the 29th of March. For North Melbourne, the players in the mix are Shields, Greenwood and Bergman. For the Blues, the players under consideration are Jack Martin, Durden and Motlop. The current injured players for the Kangaroos are Lau and Goda with a season-ending injury. The injured players for the Blues are Walsh, Wiedering, Doherty and Savani, both to ACL knee injuries. Last round, North Melbourne lost to Fremantle by 26 points, whilst Carlton had the bye. Where the game will be won, I selected the Blues midfielders to be too strong for the merging young North Melbourne midfielders. For Carlton, you have the setup of De Cogni in ruck with the midfielders of Cripps, Kennedy, Sarah and Hewitt, whereas North's ruck midfield setup of Xeri, Davies Uniacke, Stevens, Bailey Scott and Will Phillips. I tipped the Blues to win and win pretty easily, and the Blues will start the season unbeaten at 3 wins and 0 losses. The next game is between Fremantle and Adelaide, also on Good Friday in Perth. For Fremantle, they didn't have any injuries this week, but they have had injuries throughout the season. So I predict that they will go unchanged this week. For the Crows, the players under consideration are Borlase, Hamill and Nankervis. The Dockers are missing a number of players that include Cox, McDonald, Darcy and Corbett. The injured players for the Crows are Schoenberg, Sloan, Philthorpe, and Murray to an ACL knee injury. Fremantle beat North Melbourne last week by 26 points, and the Crows lost to the Cats by 19 points on the Friday night. Where the game will be won, I selected the Dockers midfielders to be too slick for the Crows mids. The Crows midfielders are all one-pace midfielders that don't have speed. In the ruck midfield setup for Fremantle, you have the setup of Jackson in ruck with the midfielders of Young, Sarong, Brayshaw and Johnson, compared to the Crows of O'Brien in ruck, then Dawson, Crouch, Laird and Berry. Jackson acts as another midfielder when the ball hits the ground compared to O'Brien. I tip Fremantle to win as the Dockers have more class in the midfield, and Ali's ball movement to their forward line is pedestrian slow, giving Fremantle enough time to push numbers back. The next game is between Essendon and St Kilda at Marble Stadium. There are some players in the mix this week. For Essendon, the players in the mix are Redmond and Shield. For St Kilda, Brad Crouch and Butler are in the mix. The Bombers will be missing Parrish, Ridley, Reid and Wright to suspension. The Saints have a large injury list with players consisting of Dow, Henry, Howard, Patton, Clark and Wood to concussion, and also the suspended Webster. Essendon lost last week to Sydney by 30 points, and St Kilda beat Collingwood by 15 points on a Thursday night. Where the game will be won, I selected St Kilda's midfielder as a key. The players of Marshall, Ross, Hill, Steele and Crouch against the Essendon ruck midfield setup of Goldstein or Draper with Martin, Caldwell, Merritt and Setterfield. I tip St Kilda to win. The Saints will be expecting a physical battle, and I expect them to be prepared, especially under their coach in Ross Lyon. The Saints play a good system of team football, and they know how to grind out tough and hard wins. The next game is between Port Adelaide and Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval. There are some players in the mix for this week. For Port Adelaide, the players in the mix are Georgiades and Evans. For Melbourne, the players in the mix are Woden and Petty. The Power will be missing Horne-Francis, Lord, Jackson and San Papapel to suspension. For Melbourne, they will be missing May, Hunter, Bowie, McAdam and Melsham to an ACL knee injury. In round 2, respectively, Port Adelaide beat Richmond by 30 points and Melbourne beat Hawthorn by 55 points. Where the game will be won, I selected the midfield to be key. The players of Port Adelaide ruck midfield setup of Soldo, Butters, Rosie, Wines and Drew against the Melbourne ruck midfield setup of Gawn, Oliver, Viney, Petrarca and Sparrow. The midfield will be key as this is Melbourne's strength. If Port Adelaide can get even in this area, this will assist them in winning the game, especially with Stephen May out injured and Dixon to dominate as a marking target forward. I tip Port Adelaide to win. The game is in Adelaide, and if Port are the real deal, they are expected to win at home. Melbourne do have injuries. The next game is between Western Bulldogs and West Coast in Melbourne. There are some players in the mix for this week. For the Western Bulldogs, the players in the mix are McRae and Harms returning from suspension. For West Coast, the players in the mix are Barnett, Rohan and Gaff. The Bulldogs will be missing Gardner, O'Donnell to concussion, and Bailey Smith to an ACL knee injury, whereas the Eagles will be missing Allen, Flynn, Heward and Ryan. In round 2 respectively, Western Bulldogs beat Gold Coast by 48 points and West Coast lost to GWS by 65 points. Where the game will be won, I selected the midfield to be key. The players of Western Bulldogs ruck midfield setup of English, Bontempelli, Chalor, Liberatore, and Harms against the young West Coast ruck midfield setup of Williams, Kinby, Kelly, Sheed, and Hunt. These players of the Western Bulldogs will be too strong for the young West Coast midfielders. I tipped the Western Bulldogs to win easily. The Bulldogs against last year's Wooden Spooners, who are missing their best forward in Oscar Allen. How will the Eagles score? The Bulldogs will have too much for the West Coast Eagles. The next game is between Richmond and Sydney at the MCG. There are some players in the mix for this week. For Richmond, the players under consideration are Naismith, Cumberland, and Sonsey. For Sydney, the players in the mix are Laddams, Francis, and Hamling. The Tigers will be missing Graham, Pressier, and Gipkus to an ACL knee injury, whereas the Swans will be missing Parker, Mills, and Adams. In round 2, respectively, Richmond lost to Port Adelaide by 30 points, and Sydney beat Essendon by 30 points. Both teams had margins associated with 30 points. Where the game will be won, I selected the midfield to be key. The players of Richmond ruck midfield setup of Nankervis, Hopper, Taranto, McIntosh, and Ross against Sydney's ruck midfield setup of Grundy, Jordan, Rowbottom, Chad Warner, and Golden. I tipped the Swans to win. They have too many class with so many elite ball users in their team. That includes Gordon and Blakey. The last game of the week is between Hawthorn and Geelong at the MCG. Will this be another Easter Monday classic? There are some players in the mix for this week. For the Hawks, the players that are under consideration are Butler and Meek, whereas for the Cats, the players in the mix are Manham and Duncan. The Hawks will be missing Wingard, CJ, Day, Granger Barras, and Blunt to an ACL knee injury, whereas the Cats will be missing Cam Guthrie, Roland, Dangerfield, and Atkins. In round 2, respectively, Hawthorn lost to Melbourne by 55 points, and Geelong beat the Crows by 19 points. Where the game will be won, I selected the forward line of Geelong's to be the key. The players of Hawthorn defence consist of Frost, Hardwick, and MP, and they will be against the Geelong forwards of Hawkins and Cameron, the two power forwards, and the small forward in Stengel. The Cats forwards will be too strong for the Hawthorn defenders. Based on this, I will tip Geelong to win easily. The Cats will be too strong against the young Hawks. In summary, for my round 3 tips are: first game, I tipped Brisbane to beat Collingwood on a Thursday night, and for the 2 Good Friday games, I tipped the Blues to beat North Melbourne and the Dockers to beat the Crows, St Kilda to beat Essendon, the Power to beat Demons, Western Bulldogs to easily beat West Coast, the Swans to beat Richmond at the MCG, and Geelong should get over Hawthorn. That's the end, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment on my channel. Every subscriber will be appreciated.